This video is not for whales and dolphins, it's for sharks, because you are just like me. And today I want to talk about Ellen. Ellen's getting buffed as we head into season 2, and yeah, I kind of want to talk about it. So I'm glad that she's getting buffed. It's a really good thing for the future of the game. And what I want to talk about here is I want to talk about why she's getting buffed, and what that means for the future of Zenless Zone Zero. So first things first, then, let's talk about why she's getting buffed. So here's the thing. Ellen is a beloved character in Zenless Zone Zero. Her design is amazing. Like, how many shark girls can you think of? But essentially, she failed as an agent in Zenless Zone Zero, but not as a character. And I think that that's a powerful lesson that's been learned by the Zenless Zone Zero development team. And I think that we're starting to see that with the way that they're developing newer characters. And I think even as early as 1.1, I think we were starting to see a change and a shift in the methodology behind the way that they build their units. And I'll talk about that some more in just a moment. But for starters, why did Ellen need a buff? So Ellen needed a buff because the limited S-rank DPS agents perform at a certain level, and then standard S-rank agents also perform at a certain level, and then A-rank DPS agents also perform at a certain level. And it's okay for an agent to perform outside of that bubble, so to speak, in an upwards fashion, but it's maybe less okay for a limited S-rank agent to fall into like a lower bubble. And Ellen honestly had fallen into a lower bubble. Now, this doesn't mean that she's a bad character by any means. It also doesn't mean that you couldn't clear with Ellen. It just meant that you had to make sure that she was very well built, you knew exactly what you were doing when you were playing her, and you were supporting her well with your team. And I think a lot of people who enjoy playing Ellen were still comfortable doing that and still okay to clear endgame content. But it didn't change the fact that she was feeling more and more like a standard S-rank agent, where you needed to put in quite a lot of effort in order to get the clears that you wanted, as opposed to a limited S-rank agent. And it doesn't feel good to pull for an agent and then have them feel like a standard S-rank. So Ellen needed these buffs in order to move her up into feeling like a limited S-rank agent. And I think that speaks to the heart of the Zenless Zone Zero dev team, that they took the initiative to do that. Because it very well could have been the case that they could have just left Ellen, and people who loved Ellen would have still continued to clear with her in the same way that you can still continue to clear the endgame with Nekomata or Soldier 11, but it just would have got increasingly harder. And I think it's fantastic that she's getting those buffs. In terms of the buffs that she's getting, we'll just talk about that really quickly, although this is not like a what she's getting, it's more of a why it matters. But in terms of what she's getting her Lost Void gear in terms of the general kit. So she's getting that icy slash and the little swoosh that she does as a shark. And then she's also getting an amendment to the characters that she can work with for her additional ability, and she's adding stun agents to that list. And again, this is a fantastic change because it just really opens up her team flexibility and means that she can be run with more agents, not just now, but in the future. Because, for example, she could be run with Lighter now. Yeah, absolutely, she can. And Lighter is one of the agents that's going to benefit Ellen the most. But it also means that moving forwards, as we maybe start to get a more generalist stun agent who could also work well with Ellen, that would also be applicable for them to be run in a team with Ellen, which is fantastic to see. And also to that point, we have Jufufu coming up in the second half of Season 2. And as long as Jufufu's additional ability says that she only needs an attack or anomaly character, or, so that her additional ability is not too hard to hit as well, then that means that Ellen will be able to work with her also, which again is great to see. And I think as we've got deeper and deeper into the game, I think at the start of the game, the devs maybe wanted to keep things really locked down and have agents played only within their faction or, in very specific teams. But as we got deeper and deeper into the game, the ideas that they had potentially about team building have flexed and changed. And now we have characters that are extremely flexible. For example, Evelyn just wants a stun or support agent. So essentially, as long as you're running her in some kind of coherent team, she's going to have her additional ability active. So it's good to see that they're able to go back and correct that information for Ellen to give her more team flexibility and then potentially more viability deeper into the game. And as mentioned, I think this is definitely something that they have learned from, because if we look at the agents even released in 1.1, yeah, sure, Jane and Chingy both want a faction member to be present, but they're also okay with just very loose attack agent for Chingy and anomaly agent for Jane. And I think this is really come in incredibly useful for both of these characters, because Jane, you could argue, might not have received that much of a buff if she didn't have that anomaly part built into her additional ability, because she wouldn't have then been able to work with Vivian when Vivian came out. And if I'm totally honest, the next character that I think could have been buffed would have been Jane. But I think they actually learned from the lack of flexibility that they put on Ellen's kit, even in 1.0 to 1.1, that being so strict with team building wasn't going to do older characters favors when newer characters come out that could actually benefit from those older characters. And I think in terms of the future for Zenless Zone Zero and the way that they design characters, is that I do think that certain characters are going to be reliant on that additional ability, and I think that they are going to provide enough flexibility that they can give themselves a little bit of wiggle room as they move forward and design new characters. So for example, I do think that we're probably likely to see a lot more that are similar to Evelyn's, where it's like stun or support, or Astra's, where it's like attack or anomaly. So basically, as long as you're running them in a team that kind of makes sense, then they will gain access to that key additional ability. And I think I have also seen some speculation floating around potential buffs for other units in Zenless Zone Zero, and I think I just have to be totally honest and say I can't see it happening. I think that they learned a lesson in 1.0 that they are now not going to need to fix, or at the very least that they are not planning to fix. However, I think if they did make a mistake on a character, I think the fact that they've gone back and fixed Ellen kind of goes to show that they're not afraid to go back and do that should another character need it at some point in the future. And as for right now, every other limited S rank is performing like a limited S rank, and every other standard S rank is performing like a standard S rank. You could argue some of them are performing better in an upwards fashion, or even just an A rank performing better in an upwards fashion. I mean, some people might even say that Nicole is basically a limited S rank, but it's kind of okay for agents to perform above their bubbles, but it's really not okay for an agent that you've pulled for to feel worse than someone that you could have got for free. And on that note, that's also why I don't think that we're going to see any standard S rank buffs or A rank buffs, is because those aren't agents that you can pull for. So it doesn't make much sense for them to buff them in that way. I mean, I could obviously be wrong about that, and I think there's a lot of love for agents like Billy and Corin who do have Lost Void gear, so you could make the argument for if they added that in during a particularly slow patch for Zenless and say, oh, hey, Billy just got his Lost Void buffs in the main game. I could see them doing that, but there's just not really a incentive for them to do so right now. The same as there's not an incentive to do it for the standard S ranks, because you can't choose to pull for them. You can choose them for free from the S rank selector. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about all of this. Ultimately, I think my final thought on this is that as much as I don't think that other characters will receive buffs, the willingness of the development team to go back and do that is incredibly positive for the future of Zenless Zone Zero. Because should it happen again, we know they'll fix it. If you're interested in more of these yaps, then don't forget to like and subscribe for better than average luck on all your pulls. And if you want to drop me a follow over on Twitch, then you can feel free to do so. I yap about this stuff pretty regularly. And lastly, join the Discord if you want to come and chill and hang out with some cool chill peeps who can give you build advice and all of that good fun stuff. So anyway, thanks very much for listening. Bye, 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 bye.